Hi you guys, welcome back to my channel, or to my channel if you are new here. My name is Ivy, and today we are going to be doing the mid-year book tag. I love this video because I feel like you really get to explain and dive into why you like books, why you don't like books, the feelings behind them. I just feel like it's more specific. So let's just jump right in. I am using all of the questions that Rachel Catherine used in her video, which are from the original creator of this, who I honestly don't know who it is. And then she added questions that Katie used in her videos. So I am using a mixture of those questions. So the first question is, how many books have you read so far this year? And I have read 35, which is so good for me, but watching other mid-year wrap-ups where they have read like 79 books, I'm like, wow, I don't have that many to talk about. But for me, it is so good to have already read 35 this year. It's the most I have definitely read so far in my reading journey. I feel like I have been flying through books this year. Okay, my husband just called me, so little bit of an intermission. Let's see where we were. I don't really honestly think that I have even answered any of the questions yet. The first question is best book of the year. Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. My sister kept telling me, Ivy, you need to read this book, you need to read this book, you need to read this book. And I seriously started this book 3 times before I read it. And then once I got into it, I was obsessed. I cried so much during this book. Everything that people say about this book is so true. Like, the love is just so pure. I also think that this is a great book if you are like tired of a typical romance, but you don't really like other genres, to read this, because it's mainly romance with, it's like historical romance. It is just a touch of fantasy. It almost feels like if you read Harry Potter, but it was just like a romance between 2 of the characters. Like, very little fantasy. They just live in the world, but it doesn't have such a strong part in this book specifically. This book is so good. I definitely think I'll reread this at some point, probably next year. By far my favorite book of the year. And that leads us right into our second question, which is best sequel. For me, it was definitely Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. This had very mixed reviews. I saw a lot of people who didn't like it. I will say that the first one is romance, the second one is fantasy. It is a lot more about the war and like what is going on, and less heavy on the romance. But it is still so good. The first couple of chapters, like, I remember I was in the bathtub and I started reading literally like the first page, and there were just tears running down my face because of how strongly I felt about these characters. I just loved this duology so much. I can't believe how strongly I feel about it for it only being 2 books. Like, I feel as strongly about this as I hear people feel about like 10-book series, and I was only with these characters for 2 books. She just put so much into them. I loved these books so much. If you have not read them yet, or you're on the fence about reading them, pick them up. They are so good. They are so well worth your time. I love these books so much. Okay, the next question is new release that you have not read yet but want to, and I do want to read Not in Love before the end of the year. I will probably pick this one up soon. I've heard kind of mixed reviews about it, that it's basically erotica, and then I've heard people say like if you go into it thinking it's erotica, you actually feel like it's not too bad. I love Ali Hazelwood. I typically don't really like her spice, but overall I really enjoy her books, so I'm very excited for this. I also just really like the cover of this book. I feel like it's, I don't know, maybe it's just because it's like so shiny and her other books are matte. I just think the cover of this book is so beautiful, and I have the independent exclusive edition, the independent bookstore exclusive edition, and I absolutely love the art that comes in it. I think it is so cute. The next question is a book that surprised you, and I have two for this one. The first one is Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. This is a very popular book, so I shouldn't have been surprised that I loved it so much, but I went into this book thinking, this isn't my genre, this isn't what I typically read, I just want to read it, and I loved this book. Like, I felt so connected to our main character. I felt like I knew her. When she was in danger, like, I was on the edge of my seat freaking out that something was going to happen to her, like she was a real person. And I also just feel like this book opened my eyes up to things that after reading it, I'm like, how did I already not feel that way? Or how did I already not see that? But I feel like that just goes to show you that reading is so just important. Like, just getting different perspectives through books just opens your mind to different things. And again, just love this book. This is a book about a black woman who lives in the 70s who ends up like going back into time and getting kind of stuck in between two times, between the 70s where she lives and then back in like the antebellum South. And it is so good, you guys. I also just love this cover. I forget where I bought this. I just remember I like randomly saw it because I don't love just like the traditional cover of this. It's just overall, it does give a good feeling of what the book is like, but it's just kind of what the book is like, but it's just kind of a bland cover. This cover I think is absolutely stunning. I love it. The other book I have for this is The Night Swim by Megan Golden. I just kind of thought, I went into this with really low expectations because I had recently read a thriller that I really disliked, that I felt excited about, and these were both thrillers that were kind of on like my summer thriller list. And the last thriller that I had read, it was Something in the Water, and I thought it was going to be summery and it wasn't. And this one I also thought was going to be summery, and I just didn't want to hate it. So I just went in with like zero expectations, and I actually ended up loving it. This book follows two different cases, and our main character is a podcaster, and it follows the case that her podcast is currently covering, and then also a case that's a cold case that like she's trying to figure out. And it's like, and they both have very similar crimes. Like, both of the cases have very similar crimes, but not necessarily connected in any other way than like through the podcaster and the town that they're in. But this book was so good. It reminded me so much of the Counterclock podcast with Delia D'Ambra. So if you like that podcast, pick up this book because it had the same essence. And I would also recommend getting the audiobook for this. If you hate audiobooks, just listen to the chapters that are of the podcast. It goes between two different POVs and then the podcast episodes. And the podcast episodes in the audiobook are podcasts. Like, they have the music, they have the sound effects. They feel like you're listening to a podcast, not an audiobook. And even if I was reading the physical book, I would pull up the audiobook and listen to the podcast with the audiobook because I was like, it's just not the same if I read it. It is so worth picking up the audiobook for this. And I would really recommend this. I never see people talking about this thriller. It's not like shocking or like crazy or super scary. It's overall just a very good mystery book. I probably shouldn't call it a thriller. I feel like that will give you unrealistic expectations. The next question is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. And as soon as I saw this question, I was like, I know what it is. It's the new Alyssa Sussman book. I'm so excited for it. And then I get on to check Goodreads for when it comes out, and they pushed it back until April of 2025. So it's not even a new release for the rest of the year, which makes me so sad, because I seriously cannot think of another book coming out that I'm super excited for. When the year started, I was really just excited for Ali Hazelwood's new releases, and then all of the other books that I'm really looking forward to are all coming out next year, at least the ones off the top of my head. Totally and Completely Fine is coming out next year. The new Hunger Games book is coming out next year. The Wet by Ali Hazelwood, is that what it's called? It's called like Wet or Moist or Water or something like that by Ali Hazelwood. Those I'm all really excited for, but again, they all come out next year. I just can't really think of anything that comes out in the rest of the year that I'm personally excited for. The next question was by far my easiest question to answer, and that is new favorite author, and it is without a doubt Annabelle Monaghan. I've read all 3 books that she has released back to back. I think I read one little novella in between them. I actually read them in opposite of publication order. I read this one first because I got the ARC from NetGalley, and I was reading it and I was like, this is a really good romance. This is a really good romance, just really liking it. And then when I finished it, I kid you not, this book was the only thing I thought about for not days, weeks. I still think about it. I still plan on rereading it probably this year. That is how much I loved it. I love it so much. This is such a good romance book. If you like romances books that are heavily focused on not just the romance, but also our main character kind of evolving and just like finding herself, you will definitely like this book. Then I read Same Time Next Summer. I also really liked this one. We'll probably reread this one in the future. I definitely didn't like it as summer romance. None of these have beaten summer romance for me, but I've loved them all. And then Nora Goes Off Script. I would really recommend this if you hate third act breakups. Not saying that there technically isn't one. It is just done in a way that I have never seen before, and again, it is used as such a good way to kind of move not just the romance forward, but the character forward. Overall, such a good author. Probably my top, at least my top 2, like in my top 2 favorite romance author. I love all 3 of these books. They hold such a special place in my heart. If you have not read them, please pick all of them up, but especially Summer Romance. I don't know how any of her books will ever beat this one for me, but I will read absolutely anything she ever decides to publish because I love her so much. The next question is book that made you cry, which I actually kind of had a hard time with. I haven't had like a sob session with a book this year like I had with If He Had Been With Me last year, but there are 2 books that came to mind with books that just really made me feel enough to get the tears flowing. The first one is The Berry Pickers. This follows 2 different stories. We have our one family who is an indigenous family. They live in Maine and they are just, you know, trying to make it by. And their daughter was actually taken or went missing when she was 3 years old. And then we're following a girl, however many years later, who is just kind of trying to figure out her life. It's not explicitly said at the beginning, but it's very obvious that, I think her name is Eleanor, is the girl. And the end of this book just brought so much emotion to me. I remember, I think I was listening to the audiobook and I was ripping out staples from carpeting that was in my stairs, and I like needed to take a second to like breathe because I was just so connected to this family. I will say that there is one specific thing in this book that probably wouldn't hurt to check the trigger warnings for it, just because it is depicted very honestly and it's very heartbreaking, and if it's something that you do not want to read about, I do think you would find it triggering. So just putting that out there, it probably would not hurt to check the trigger warnings for that one. Our next question is a book that made you happy, and for this I picked The Summer of Broken Rules by K.L. Walther. I read this book I think in like January or February. It was not seasonally appropriate, but I think that's a part of the reason why I enjoyed it so much, because this book is so summery, like just so summery. The romance in this is so cute. All of the outside characters, like I feel like when you go into a romance book, so many times you only get the couple. In this, I felt so connected to every single person in the family, and it overall was just a really good time. I will say that there is like depictions of grief in this book, so you might think like, is it really that happy? And I will say that it's not handled, it's not the main forefront of this book is grief. It's just kind of an underlying thing that's always there. But I will say that that doesn't, I almost feel like that adds to how good of a book this is. And I don't know, I feel like I'm trying to explain how this book is happy even though it deals with sad topics, but look at the cover. Like, of course this book is happy. It just has a couple sad moments. Okay, the next one I think is such a fun question, and it is the most beautiful book you have bought this year. By far, 5 Broken Blades. I cannot believe that this is not a special edition. This is the regular edition of 5 Broken Blades. It is stunning. I got this at Costco actually. I could not pass it up seeing the sprayed edges. And then I was shocked because the more I looked at it, the prettier it got. But obviously the sprayed edges just like steal the show. The fact that they're sprayed like all, like it's just gorgeous. And then the inside of the book has these gorgeous artworks of our main characters. I think it's the same on both sides. It just has different quotes. I'm not entirely sure. So pretty. And then the book without the dust jacket is gorgeous. Are you kidding me? Like, tell me that's a regular book and not a special edition. It is so pretty. I love it. I have not read this book yet. I really do want to read it. I tried to read it for a while and I was just not in the mood for it, so I put it down. But I do definitely want to read this book before the end of the year because I know that the second one comes out next year. I think it's blue and it's also getting really pretty sprayed edges. So pretty. I really hope I like that book because I'll never get rid of it. It's too pretty. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? And I don't have any like super like I need to read this by the end of the year. The one goal that I just kind of have for the end of the year is getting back into the ACOTAR series. Where's my ACOTAR? Down here. I'm actually listening to the audiobook for ACOTAR right now because I just wanted to reread this before I jumped back into it. I read a little bit of ACOMAF, but I just never finished it, and I would love to finish this entire, I guess not finish what's released of this series before the end of the year. But even if I can't finish A Court of Silver Flames, I at least want to get through the original trilogy. These are just the 2 that I currently own. The next question I think is your 5-star reads, or how many 5-star reads you have. I don't really rate my books. I find rating books really hard to do. I just thought I would go through and talk about the couple of books that didn't really fit any of these prompts but were by far some of the best books that I have read this year. The first one is Adelaide. Ugh, I wish more people read this book. I think it's on Kindle Unlimited too, so I'm not sure why I haven't heard more people talk about this. This follows a girl named Adelaide just kind of finding herself in her 20s while she's doing her master's in England, and it goes through the course of this relationship that she has that really just makes her find herself. And it is such a beautiful book, and I feel like depicts so well what it is like to be a woman. And I have no notes on this book. It is such a good book. I need to get my hands on the physical copy because I love the cover. And I know that I want to reread this eventually. Just talking about it right now makes me want to pull it up and read it. The next book that I have is The Unmaking of June Farrow. This was such a good book. It is a very quick read following a girl named June, and it kind of has a similar vibe to like Practical Magic in that the Farrow women have a very distinct reputation, and in this they all have gone crazy or mad, I think they call it. They've all gone mad, and June is kind of getting to that age where she's very anxious about going mad, and she's trying to kind of find out like what is going on, like why is this happening. There's mystery in here. There's like a teeny tiny subplot of romance. I will say that like the main element of this book, which I personally I feel like you should go into blind about like the main element of this book, but if you've heard other people talk about it, you probably know what I'm talking about. But don't think too hard about it because it's definitely gets confusing when you think too hard about it. And then the other book is Lessons in Chemistry. I do not know why I didn't think that I would absolutely eat this book up because it is so popular. But this book, one of the best books I have read all year, probably one of my favorite books ever. It is so good. The writing is so good. The romance in this, I don't know why I never heard a single person talk about the romance in this book. The romance in this eats. Chef's kiss. I love this book. If you have not read it yet, you absolutely need to get your hands on it. I need to get my hands on my own copy, but I really want to have the UK version that like looks, I think it looks like the periodic table, or maybe she's like holding a TV. Whatever the UK version is, I love it and I really want that one. Okay, the next one is a book that you enjoyed with mixed reviews. I feel like Ruthless Vows probably fits this prompt the best, but since I kind of already touched on that book, I thought I would just mention Loathe to Love by Ali Hazelwood. I haven't technically finished this because I have like 50 pages of one of the novellas left. I've read all of kind of the novellas like sporadically in this, just borrowing them each from my library, and I feel like I've heard a lot of people say that this book is just like little romances for the sake of having smut. I do not feel that way at all. I feel like these romances are well fleshed out for all the longer that they are. I love how all of the characters connect. The one that I'm on right now I haven't been loving as much, but other than that, like, I've loved them. I feel like it is prime Ali Hazelwood. Like, if you love her other books and just need like a quick little palate cleanser, just pick up one of these novellas and it's perfect. I love it. Okay, so I realized that I skipped a prompt. So I skipped your new fictional crush, which I don't typically really like fixate on any of like the love interests in books, but the one that just sticks out in my mind is Miles from Funny Story. I have never read a male love interest like him. He reminds me so much of my husband, which is obviously why I liked him so much. Even now that I think about it, maybe I liked it so much because they honestly kind of remind me of me and Logan. Maybe that's why I liked that book so much. I loved this book, but overall I just feel like Miles was such a great character, and just like one of those characters that's like kind of misunderstood, but like, I just love him. Read this book. Love you, Miles. Okay, now the next one is 5-star predictions, and I have 2 for this. I don't know if I will read both of these by the end of the year. We will have to wait for my 2024 reading wrap up. The first one is Beach Read by Emily Henry. I actually started this one before, and I remember when I was reading it, I could tell like this is objectively a very good book, but I just wasn't in the mood for it. But now that it's one of the only Emily Henry books that I haven't read, I do really want to read it, and I think that it probably will be one of my favorite. I think it probably will be one of my favorite Emily Henry books. The other book that I could also really see being a 5-star is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. I love the Caraval series. I feel like that series gets kind of just like tossed to the side when talking about this one, but I personally have really enjoyed it so far. And from what everyone says about this book, I feel like it is right up my alley, and it will definitely be a book that I just consumes me. Okay, I also skipped another prompt. I don't know what I'm doing. The other prompt is books you want to reread before the end of the year, and first and foremost, I need to reread Maybe in Another Life because this is my book club's pick for June and July. So I definitely need to reread this. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid, and this was already one that I wanted to reread, but I would actually love to reread any of her Hollywood series, specifically probably Carrie Soto. This one's just kind of sticking out to me. I reread Daisy Jones last year and absolutely loved the reread, but I think I want to reread all of them in order that they were published. I don't know if we will get to that this year, but we will definitely be rereading Maybe in Another Life. Okay, we're getting close to the end. Hopefully I didn't skip any more questions. I have skipped so many, so hopefully I caught them all and I won't finish filming before I know that I've gotten all of them. The next one is book series that you want to finish before the end of the year. I have 2 here. I definitely think I will have them both finished by the end of the year. The first one is the Bridgerton series. The only one I have left is On the Way to the Wedding. So I don't think I'm going to have any trouble finishing that this year. And then the second one is the Caraval trilogy. I'm almost 200 pages into this one. It was just one of those books that I started, read for a bit, and then just kind of fell to the wayside, but I do really want to pick it back up. I really enjoy this series and all of the characters, but when the last one ended, I just kind of remember thinking like, wait, like what else do we have left? And I feel like that's kind of why I haven't been super like needing to finish this, but I do know that I'm going to finish it before the end of the year, and I do really want to get into her next trilogy. The last 2 questions are, do you think you will reach your reading goal, and any more reading goals that you have added for the second half of the year? And I do think I'll reach my reading goal. I have read 35 out of 50 books for my reading goal, so I'm 10 books ahead of schedule. I definitely think I'm going to reach it. I am starting nursing school in the fall, so I think that I'll be reading at a much slower pace, but I feel like I've gotten so ahead in the summertime that I definitely think that even if I only read a couple books a month for the rest of the year, that I will still complete it. And again, really the only goal that I have is really getting through the ACOTAR series. I just keep really putting that off. Oh my god, I forgot another prompt. I forgot books you've been putting off. How did I forget so many prompts? I have them all written down with the answer. I didn't really have a good answer for that one anyway, so it's okay. But I do really want to finish the ACOTAR series before the end of the year, and I also would really just like to work on my physical TBR. I just have so many books, and I have done a really good job so far this year of getting through a lot of those physical copies. I'm proud of myself for that, but I just want to kind of keep those good vibes going for the rest of the year and just get through a decent amount of books on my physical TBR. But with that being said, that is the end of this video. Bye!